Nice and cozy. I'm also nice and slutty looking with that shirt riding up like that. Dude, I hope Paul gets some wood soon, because I feel like that was one of those streams that could have gone until like 2 in the morning, but only if he had a wood fire going. I mean, I couldn't be out here anymore right now if it weren't for this electric heater I've got going. Dude, why is this way? Kitty, just because I start streaming doesn't mean I need you over here, okay? Get out of here. Be gone. I love you. Hey, it's Merrick. What the fuck? That's so cool. I always say that, but that doesn't mean anybody actually ends up showing up. But it's always cool when they do. I don't know. That was just one of those streams where I was like, fuck, Paul's done talking, but by gum, I ain't. Good evening, indeed. Good evening it is. What time is it where you're at? It is fucking 12:30 in the morning here. Dude, I love the content that Paul does where he's just got some shit talker on Discord and they're having it out. But I wish he would do one of those with me one of these days, because I feel like we could have a really interesting, like, 20-minute conversation about something. But it feels like he reserves that sort of thing for a more adversarial kind of interaction, which I understand. But man, I would love to pick his brain on some of this shit. Like, I brought up food sovereignty, and that's because it's something that now that I've been kind of red pilled on, it's like, I don't know. I want to talk to more people about it and see how they feel about it, see how they feel like it could, uh, what sort of interplay it could have with the broader labor movement and shit. Man, I'm so blind these days. I have to literally lean forward like an old lady to read these chats. It's 12:33 here. Mississippi? Or were you saying miss? I missed that. I'm sorry. Same, but we got some good stories out of the dude. Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about it. It's like, I mean, that's why I've been watching Paul for 10 years, more than anything. More than the fact that I think he's based like 99% of the time. More than the fact that he's an endless font of good media recommendations. It's the fact that he's an amazing fucking storyteller. That is what caught my attention when he was on Drunken Peasants, and that is what continues to catch my attention in streams to this day whenever he's doing highdeology. It's like the most appealing thing about his channel and about his involvement in any work that he's in. It's like it's like Paul's ability to find stories out of literally any topic you can imagine. Not maybe any topic you can imagine, but dude has a million stories, and you never know when one's gonna pop off. And like, great commentary to go along with it. It's, what can you ask for better? I don't think you can. Let me turn on all chat so I can see what's actually going on, because I'm sure I'm not getting everything. Let me see. No, I meant Mrs. and Miss. Okay, I live in Kansas. Right on. Well, we live in the same time zone then. We live in Central Time. I really think that's disgusting. Merrick, listen, I'm gonna do something for you, bud. That I think you're a mod on Paul's channel. I'm pretty sure. Welcome to the mod team over here, and I will let you know that just as I was inspired to start doing this format by Paul, I maintain the same rules for my chat, and I don't expect you to enforce them if you don't want to, if you don't feel up to it, don't feel like you're being given some sort of job, but feel free to erase the idiots in here just as you would for Paul's chat as well. And I'm very open about having adopted those rules. I'm pretty sure I even asked him if that was okay, because it's like, it really is, in my opinion, the only way to end up with a chat that's even halfway readable. Let's just read some of this shit. Man, girl, idiot, complete moron, transphobic retard. Get him out of here, right? Now, I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm just saying, you know what I mean? This is not me shouting orders, but, like, let's just give an example. Turn to Jesus. Retard. Get out of here. Drag him out and fucking Showtime at the Apollo, clown with a hook, drag him off the stage. Skibbity, moron, kick him out of here, push him away. You know what I mean? It's just like all of these comments are going to be fucking moronic. Let me see here. Fair enough. I don't do much with this power anyway. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, that's why you're cool. That's why you're a good mod, is because, like, like, the idiots and shit, but you're not, like, overbearing about it. You know what I mean? You're not, like, a harsh mod. And that's something I can appreciate about you. Skibbity is bad. It just means that you're probably 12. Sorry. Is she trans woman? Yes. Don't get pissed at us because you're insecure. I'm getting pissed at you because you're morons. How does that make me insecure? Bro, sounds like you're insecure about your own fucking stupidity. Dude, I am not the person in here. I'm not the person in here crying about somebody else's identity, right? Right? Hey, right? Yeah. Thick? Yes, quite thick. What do you do for work? I work at a fast food restaurant and I help run the farm. So, mostly that entails being a hostess at my work, and around here, I help feed and water the animals and do a lot of the heavy lifting, kind of like manual labor type shit that is to be done. My dad manages the seed saving and administrative aspects. My mom manages most of the like processing and end of life care for the plants, and I take care of me and my partner take care of the stock. And because my dad has gotten pretty old, at this point I am tasked with most of the heavy lifting to be done around the farm. So that's my extensive list of tasks, and that's not counting food prep and making meals and stuff, because pretty much there's like 3 people in my household that rotate through making meals. I'm just one of them, so luckily not everything is just on one person, so that's cool, a nice division of labor going on. Thank you for your service. What are you talking about? I am so confused. Man, I am begging this chat. Make sense. Some of you, please. I feel like I ran Merrick off. I'm really sad. I feel like I gave him I gave him a scepter, and he's like, he probably feels like spotlighted. For what it's worth, I work at a restaurant as well. But, never mind. I didn't run you off. Well, that's good. I'm still here. Cool. You make sense, sir. Well, I'm not a sir, but I'm glad I make sense. For what it's worth, I work at a restaurant as well, but it's closer to fine dining, end of that spectrum. I have to open wine and such, deal with big parties occasionally. Dude, I want to work in that kind of environment so bad, though. I want to go from my current food service work to that kind of food service work. And there's a couple of sort of fine dining restaurants in the city near me, so I know that I could find that kind of work. It's just a matter of, like, actually finding it, so to speak. So it's like, but I want to get into that field because I know that like if you're a waitress at like a ritzy kind of place, then yeah, you're making shit for wages, but you're making so fucking much in tips. I know I would end up making more than I currently do, especially if I could end up getting full-time hours. Be careful what you wish for. That's fair enough. I mean, honestly, you know what I really wish for, if I'm being completely honest? I wish for my own fucking business. The more I think about it, the more I think I want a food truck. I want some sort of little food truck where I've got some kind of item that I really like. I keep thinking about mobile pizza. That's what I keep thinking about because I've got such a delicious pizza recipe. And I keep thinking about, what if I turned this into a commercially doable pizza recipe and I started selling this would be a huge upstart cost, but like, get a food truck, right? Get some pizza ovens in there. Some of those like 8-minute pizza ovens where it's got like the conveyor belt. And then get like a single burner gas stove thing bolted to the floor, obviously, for a big old stock pot for me to make my sauce in every night. have a prep station set up in there. I feel like this would not, this, number one, this would not use a lot of space. And number two, I don't feel like it would use a lot of power. Maybe there's something I'm not thinking of, but it's something I think about a lot. So yeah, I think you're right. Like really, the answer to my woes is not working in high class food service. It's working for my fucking self, for being honest, right? I've worked in mom and pop shops and corporate places. Right on. Which one was better in your opinion? Because I've only worked for corporate restaurants so far. Well, that's not true. I did work for one mom and pop restaurant actually, and in fact, that was the restaurant I worked at longer than any of the others. And it was more on the. It wasn't like fine dining, but it was like it was like a sit down restaurant. I don't know what you'd call it. It's like casual, but not like fast casual. Like better food than you'd get at Denny's, but not quite as good as you'd get at like a Michelin star restaurant or something. I don't know how to put it. Um, it was a seafood restaurant. Y'all can look it up and y'all can tell me what kind of restaurant it is. It's Catfish Kettle in Farmington, Missouri. Or yeah, Farmington, Missouri. Catfish Kettle. Look it up and tell me what kind of restaurant it is, because I don't know what you'd call it. Um, but it was just a seafood restaurant. We did a lot of our prep in house, so we didn't get a whole bunch of our stuff shipped to us. Now, some of it we did, like our mac and cheese out of bag, our mashed potatoes out of bag at that time. I don't know if they still do it this way, but our baked beans, we made those in store. Our coleslaw, we made that in store. Our cucumber salad, we made that in store. Fried okra, we didn't make that in store. The hush puppies, we made those in store. Um, and the breading for our chicken, which also served as the marinade for our chicken, that we made in store, and that ended up being a pretty important aspect, honestly, of that restaurant's success because our chicken recipe was just so unique and so delicious. The last fine dining place I was working at was family owned. Got shift drinks all the time. But God, there was so much bullshit with it. Too much to get into via text. Oh God. Yeah, that sounds awful. So do you think that there's maybe like a level of kind of like security and maybe protection from some of that um, intransigence that comes with a corporate position? That like you can kind of get away with it if it's just like a little family owned mom and pop kind of thing? Turn to God. Stop vaping. Yes, Duke Ellis, I'm going to totally turn my entire life around because your dumb ass told me to in a YouTube chat. Does that ever work for you? Do you ever like go to someone and give them your self-righteous opinion on what they should be doing with their life? And does it actually like change the thing that they're doing? Is that like has that been like a successful tactic for you in the past? Perhaps it depends on the company. Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I guess some companies really are like they're intransigent without needing that level of like intimate connection with the little small town they're operating in. There are just some companies that don't give a shit. Like it's not food service, but Walmart is one of those companies that will just it'll run its fucking staff like a fucking slave operation and get away with it. Like there's some ridiculous. Amazon's the same way in the cities and places where these companies operate. They are very often some of the biggest potential tax base. You know what I mean? In the county or in the city or whatever, and so they end up being allowed to run completely roughshod over the working class of that area. Really sucks. The reactionary conservatives are out, dude. The reactionary conservatives are always out, dude. In the wake of the Trump election, dude, it's going in the Trump of the wake election. In the wake of the Trump election, dude, there's going to be, I genuinely think, about 6 months, maybe less, of Trumpers being really fucking smug and self-righteous and uh, really loud and boisterous about their victory and about their opposition to anything that looks vaguely blue. And then, tax season will roll around. People will start rolling in their, you know, fucking next new vehicle or whatever, and whatever tragedy befalls the next 6 months will have happened by then. And people will finish up the cycle by completely forgetting about how excited they were, and I think you'll start to see people's emotions normalize a little bit after that point. After like tax season is over with and all the holidays are done with, and the school year is kind of coming to an end, I think you'll start to see things really normalize by that point, because it will have been like, if you think about it, it's basically been like 10 straight years of nothing but trumpet, 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 trumpet. Dude, people have got to be getting sick of that on both sides. I know people on the left are overwhelmingly sick of that. I know people on the right have got to be getting bored with it too. Like even if you're excited for him as a candidate, even if you think he's a more enthralling candidate, which I don't think is why Trump got elected. I do think he was a more excitable candidate than Kamala Harris, but I think Trump was elected on the back of the Democrats turning their fucking back on the working class and on the people of Gaza and the people of Palestine broadly. That is why I think Trump won. I don't think it has anything to do with him actually being a necessarily more exciting candidate. And I think once the conservatives have their little victory lap for a few months, they will grow bored of it, and they'll remember the fact that they've got 4 more years to look forward of this fucking complete samey news cycle. I don't know. I just don't foresee the American people who've been complaining about they've been complaining about our complete lack of any sort of inertia for years now, and I just don't predict that changing because Trump got elected. By the way, Phoebes, do you use Discord much? I can send you a friend request if you ever prefer to talk via voice. Yes, I do use Discord, and I believe it's in my channel description, actually. If you look at my channel description, I believe it's on there. And yeah, that could be fun. In fact, one of these days I could do it on here, maybe. Because I know I can screencast with this now, so that means I could just like open up Discord and I could have you in my earbud, and I believe it would capture your voice without capturing me. They fight unions too? I agree with that. Excellent. Yeah. I mean, like, that's the problem, right? I mean, there's so many problems when it comes to like both sides of the mainstream political dichotomy right now. And I think the American people are going to start thinking about that again in 2 or 3 months. But in order to get to that point, we're going to have, like the Trumpers are going to have to take their victory lap, and the liberals are going to have to lick their wounds for a while and figure out what went wrong and cry about it a little bit. I just got your notification, Merrick. I will actually, let me see here. Well, actually, I can't accept it right this second, but I will later. Ow, 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 ow. He was first, soon to be last. He was first, soon to be last. Do what? Do you take HRT therapy? If so, what are you using? I want to start, but I don't know what to ask the doctor for. Do you know anyone that might be of help? So, if you're looking to get started on hormone replacement therapy, depending on what state you're in, Planned Parenthood might sound weird, but Planned Parenthood is a really good organization to start with because they are super helpful in getting people HRT in a lot of different places. And most states, even states that have outlawed abortion, still have a Planned Parenthood clinic in them, and most of them help with HRT, from my understanding. There are also a number of websites online that are dedicated to helping trans people figure out exactly what they need. Um, but really, if you've got a good doctor, if you've got a relationship with a primary care provider, you don't necessarily need those resources. You can go to your primary care provider and say, I mean, if you're already out as trans, then it's a pretty easy conversation. You just tell them, I would like to start hormone replacement therapy. Um, they'll prescribe you the correct set of medications, or what they imagine will be the correct set of medications, because there are a number of hormone replacements, as well as androgen inhibitors and things like that. There are a number of different ones that they will use. Some of which work better, some of which work differently for different people. So there is kind of like a trial and error process, but usually they get it right the first time, and your doctor will be able to figure out from your medical history and the facts of your life what exact cocktail of HRT drugs that you would be best suited for, right? But if you do need those resources, they are available through Planned Parenthood and a number of other organizations that operate throughout most of the United States. Let me see here. I just see your request. Cool. Yeah, nice. Nice. Weirdly, the election of Trump could be good for the labor movement. Unionization is on a real strong dynamic for the last few years. Well, I'll tell you this much. Um, Trump is the first Republican that I can think of that had a labor representative. I think it was what was his name? Ah, man, I can't remember the name. I can't remember the dude's name off the top of my head. He was loudly denounced by the left, even though he asked to speak at both conventions. But the Trump campaign let him speak, and that, I think, speaks to a possible maybe change in Trump's labor policy, or it could just speak to him generally being friendlier towards labor advocates, which could also translate into better labor policy. Either way, you can completely divorce the presidency from the process and just look at it in terms of engagement with the process, because as you pointed out, unionization has been on a huge, strong uptick lately. And unionization is one of those things that more begets more. A big union movement encourages other people in other industries to unionize. It shows them how to free themselves from their bonds, right? It's like slave rebellion, right? The reason why slave rebellion was so harshly suppressed in the South was because as soon as you let one slave rebellion happen, all the other slaves realize that there is another option besides just working the fields, So we can, off of that trend, we can assume that unionization is probably going to continue in this country, and probably going to continue to have quite a bit of force behind it. Are you using a patch or pills for that? I am not on HRT at this moment in time. When I was on tablets, so pills. Personally, I like the pills just fine, because I'm not a big fan of patches. I don't like feeling that there's something like right on my skin. And shots, I fucking hate shots. I've always hated them, but I had a couple of bad experiences with donating plasma when I was younger, and they pretty much completely turned me off of ever wanting to be stuck with a needle again if I can help it. Which, turns out COVID-19 made it so that I had to get stuck with a needle a few more times anyway, but you got to get vaccinations. Like, I'm not opposed to it entirely, but it is something I try to avoid. So when they asked what method would work best for me, if there was a particular preference I had, I was like, tablets, please. I was referring to the fact that there was a better labor organizing dynamic during the W. Bush era than during the Obama era. Organized. I don't know as much about that as I probably should. I should go look into that. I can tell you this much. Leftists always fight harder when they feel like they're an underdog. When leftists feel, when we get cowed into feeling like our politicians, even though logically we recognize that the Democrats do not represent leftist interest, for some reason, when the Democrats get in, a huge fucking segment of the left stops working. Not all of us, right? But a big segment of, I think, probably like the online left stops doing any of the work that they might have actually been doing before that. And really, the people who stay committed are people who've got some kind of like economic interest in it or something else, like union advocates, obviously people who are in labor unions, that sort of thing does not necessarily ebb and flow with the tides, but or with the political tides, but there is sort of a fair weather liberal that gets very impassioned when a conservative is in office and feels really pushed to participate. But as soon as the liberal is back in office, they're like, alrighty. Well, it's like the back to brunch mentality that Paul's always talking about. It's they get in this mode where they're like, okay, well, everything's so safe now. Everything's so good. I mean, now, people like Vosh will talk about wanting the room to work and wanting the room to operate in that a democratic regime will allow them. But the fact of it is that those types of people don't actually end up doing that work when they've got that shelter. They end up going to brunch. They end up, you partying like it's 1985, and then when a Republican rolls back around, then they start fighting again. Then they get passionate again. Then a fire is lit under their ass, and suddenly they've got motivation. That is something that we are going to have to get over in the left. We're going to have to figure that shit out. I don't know how invasive hormone shots can be, but yeah, getting plasma or blood taken can be traumatizing. Yeah, like, I know it wouldn't be on the same level, but it's just like that pinprick sensation, and it just needles in general are just fucking, like, I was never cool with them, really. I never really had a great, giant well of tolerance for that experience when I was a kid, and now as an adult, I've got, like, things that make it even more traumatic to think about. Last time I had blood taken was horrifying, yeah. Last time I had blood taken wasn't that horrifying. Every time, like the last time I donated plasma was fucking horrifying. Literally, probably just as bad as what you're thinking. And normally I wouldn't say that, but dude, if I could just tell you, I literally, most stories that happened in my life don't hit me the way this one does. Dude, if I tell you guys this story, my arm will hurt for the rest of the night just thinking about it. So I don't even want to get into it. But, oh my god. Here, I'll tell you this much. I went to a donation lab in a college town, and I don't think there was a phlebotomist in the fucking building over 22. A lot of leftists will only speak up when the weather is fair. Right. Well, really, ironically, I think it's the other way around. I think it's like a lot of leftists will only speak up when the weather is horrible. It's like when the weather is fair and they really could get a lot of shit done, they're like, oh, well, now we can be quiet. I mean, now we can actually hear the birds. But, when it's storming and everything's fucked up and the floodwaters are rising, then they want to start screaming about it. And it's like, bro, I mean, you would have had a lot more success if you were doing that the other day when it was nice and sunny out. It's like we need to stay consistent on our advocacy. We need to stay consistent on the organizations that we involve ourselves in. And we need to start coalescing into a major movement. Like this general strike thing keeps getting talked about. That's an idea. I keep talking about my idea to have like a millions of people worth sit in DC until we've got a list of 5 demands met. Like there's a number of different ideas being passed around right now, and I think we need to push ourselves towards those. 100% agree. Happy to hear that. They get scared to fight capitalism. Right. Well, it's because it's such a scary fucking beast, and when you feel like that beast is actively beating down your door and destroying your life, it can feel like you've got to fight it. Like it doesn't matter if you don't want to. But when you feel like that beast has been subdued by the effort of someone else or by um, forces outside of your control, then you might feel an instinct to relax, right? You might feel an instinct, even though the beast has only been restrained for a little while. It hasn't actually been destroyed. It hasn't been done away with. It hasn't been evicted to the woods or anything. It's still there in its hemp twine bindings, and eventually it will wear down that hemp twine, right? Did you see any noticeable improvements with the pills? I heard the pills make them hungry all the time. Did I have the same experience? No. They didn't make me hungry all the time. They did make me very desirous of like kind of vinegary, sultry, like kind of snacks, but um, it didn't make me any more hungry than I had ever been. I don't think. I was noticing a noticeable improvement. I only got to take my first 3-month course, and in that time, yes, I did. My skin started to become much softer, which I'd always had pretty soft skin, but it did become noticeably softer while I was taking HRT. Um, I noticed a change in my hair. It seemed like my hair became a little more, like a little less dry, which was a good thing. Um, there was some emotional effects too, but I'm not gonna lie to you, Chief. I was taking a lot of acid at the same time. I was completing like the last month and a half of that HRT. Um, and so I don't really know what emotions I can fairly attribute to that versus the acid. But honestly, I don't. I feel like the fact that I can't point to any stunning examples of times when I thought rapidly different than I normally do, I think the fact that I can't think of any of those examples probably means that I honestly didn't experience that many emotional or mental effects compared to what you might expect. My friend who used the patch, they were forcing themselves to eat something because they were never hungry. Yeah, I mean, that is something I've heard from people who've taken the patch. I don't know if it was necessarily related to the patch for every single one of them, but um, for a lot of people, I have heard that kind of reaction to it. I don't really understand the mechanics behind it, but it does seem to anecdotally be something that happens. Did you notice your hair became a lot fuller when you took HRT? Yes. Well, I mean, I've already got pretty full hair, but it certainly felt fuller. It felt like I had more volume to it. So I don't know. Like, here's the thing: is like when you're really looking forward to a treatment plan that you know is going to give you specific results, or really when you're looking forward to anything that you think is going to have specific results, and then it happens, then you're going to feel like you see those results everywhere you look. So I try to be objective, but I don't know 100% for sure what actually was really 100% happening versus what was maybe happening on a small scale, but not, my brain was elevating it because I was so excited to see anything at all. Um, but the my skin softening, I did notice a very astute difference there, and my hair being less dry was a definite and noticeable difference. Hormones bring a roller coaster of emotions. Yeah, I feel like maybe that's like I feel like I'm kind of like a roller coaster of emotions at the best of times. So maybe that's why HRT really didn't make me feel all that different. It's because like I'm kind of like a loose, not a loose cannon in terms of like anger, because I said that and then I remembered that's usually used in reference to anger, and I'm really not an angry person. I'm just like an emotionally expressive person, so to speak. Like I'm very prone to crying at a sad film. I'm very prone to crying because of a sad thought. I'm very prone to lots of happiness at good news. I'm very easy to laugh. So sorry if that was a personal question. It's not really my business to ask that sort of stuff. I was just curious. No, you're good. Um, Plenty of people ask stuff like that and don't even give the apology, so you're fine. People ask all kinds of weird shit in this chat. Old enough to know. I like that. Old enough to know better. Old enough to know what? Dude, my utopia would be so fucking cool. I wish the billionaires of this fucking planet, I wish just one billionaire of this planet would like give me like $500 million to transform a city. Be like, I'm gonna give you $500 million. Turn St. Louis into your ideal utopia, dude. Oh my god, it would be the craziest shit ever. Oh my fucking god, man. We'd be buying up so many vacant lots, turning them into like multi-story community gardens, buying up so many old housing projects and renovating them and turning them into like reasonable, well maintained, easily maintained, low cost housing. God damn it, I gotta blow my nose. Dude, I would talk to the city and set up a program whereby we plant a bunch of like carbon sink and like pollution capturing plants and trees and all these little cloverleaf intersections and shit, and all the not all of the medians, but where you've got the extra wide medians, some trees off in there, dude. Take some of these old ass buildings all over St. Louis that need to be demolished. There's no improving them. Tear those down and build the fucking Phoebesplex. Dude, I don't know what else to call it, but I've got this idea for a multi-storied, multi-use building, right, with alternating floors reserved for residences and business. Like every 4 floors or something, or every 5 floors, you've got a commercial space, and in the 4 floors between those, you've got residential space, and every floor has a garden that gets just a little bit smaller so that everything still gets sun. You know what I mean? And as soon as I spent the last of the $500 million, I would look back over my city and be like, yes, we have set ourselves on a path to improvement now. Part of that money would have to go to giving St. Louis a truly universal public transportation system, like starting a cab company or something in St. Louis, or a cab service. For real, with money, we could quickly turn around this country, but they want to keep us poor. I mean, that's the fucking thing, is like, the irony of it is that if you would just let working class people run this bitch, if you would just let us be the ones, and If you just empower us to do more, we would do more, right? If the billionaire class would empower working class people to do more in their communities, if they would choose to do that, shit would work just fine. It would work better than it does now. But it would mean sacrificing a little bit of luxury. It would mean fundamentally sacrificing the greatest luxury, which is their ability to call themselves rich and you poor. That's ultimately what they want to preserve more than anything else. More than their yachts, more than their fancy mansions and their big complexes. The thing they want to preserve more than anything is their right to call themselves rich and you poor. So you live in the St. Louis area? That place definitely needs some fixing up. No, I grew up around the St. Louis area. I live in Mississippi now, but I grew up in the St. Louis area, like about an hour and a half southwest of St. Louis, more like an hour and a half, like directly south of St. Louis, if we're being honest. South, kind of slightly southwest. Anyway, and yeah, St. Louis needs some fixing up, but it's a city with potential. I cannot help but look at St. Louis and think potential all over that city. It's still at a major crossroads of commerce. It's still got a major port, you know? The Port of St. Louis still does business. I like peanut butter. Who doesn't? Midwest America would absolutely benefit from public transport. Dude, it would literally change the face of the American South and the American Midwest. If you brought universal public transportation to these areas, it would completely change the face of them. Right now, you have to have a car in most of the Midwest and the South. And that's because even if there is a bus service, there's usually not a cab service. And usually if there's a cab service, there's not a bus service. So people are hamstrung in their ability to transport themselves around. People are incredibly reliant on their family members and shit for rides around here. It's ridiculous. And this area has enough commerce, enough business, and enough people making enough money that it could easily support a taxi service. It could easily support a taxi service that offers reduced rates for like certain classes of people, you know, like reduced rates for people with EBT, which is something that, you know, a lot of cab companies or bus companies or bus services in like more progressive areas, that's a policy that they'll do. And this area has enough people and enough tourism activity that we could support something like that. There's just no movement to start something like that, and I don't know why. But yeah, I mean, like, think about how much of the Midwest and the South is littered with train tracks. And now think about how difficult it is to get a passenger train anywhere in the fucking South. That's retarded. Like, I live right next to a major train track. I should be able to go into the town near me and buy a train ticket and go to Memphis and go from Memphis to St. Louis and go from St. Louis to Chicago. There's no reason I shouldn't be able to do that. There are rails connecting all these places. In fact, I think the fucking railway that goes through the town near me, I'm pretty sure the north-south branch of it is actually, I'm pretty sure it goes all the way to fucking Chicago. What are you smoking? The ganja. The ganja. In our city, the amount of houses that are owned by investment companies is crazy. Dude, it's happening all over the United States right now. Investment companies and big corporate landlords are buying up massive swaths of housing all across this country. Whole neighborhoods, in some cases, just get bought up by one company, and now fucking corporate landlord for 200 homes. Literally millions of dollars worth of profit every year on the basis of their homogenization of the housing marketplace. I'm someone from Kansas who has a car. I live within walking distance from work, and our public transport system is horrible. I wish I could just jump on a bus to go downtown to the major KC area. Yeah, like that's the thing is you should be able to. There should be a bus somewhere in your suburb. I'm assuming you live somewhere in a suburb of Kansas City, which means that at one point we probably didn't live that far from each other, honestly, because I used to live in Carrollton, Missouri, which is on the other side of KC, on the Missouri side. But anyway, um, you should be able to take a little bus from your suburb into the greater Kansas City area, and then from there into downtown Kansas City. And you should be able to take a cab from, downtown Kansas City to some place that isn't as easily accessible from bus if you want to. And if both of those fail or if they're not practical, then like there should be a fucking subway service as well. That's a fucking crazy thing about Missouri too, is that particular area, like Missouri and Kansas, that particular area could totally, eh, like 100% handle an underground railroad service. Would it be difficult to build? Would it be a project of massive scale? Yes. But so has it been with every big fucking subway project. If the public transport system here was better, I could potentially work in Chicago. That's the thing about the fucking Midwest, right? Is that if the public transport system in the Midwest and the South was better, I could probably work in Memphis. Easily. I could easily work in Memphis, and I easily would. Like get on a bus or a train that goes to Memphis. It takes an hour to get there versus the hour and a half it takes by road. You know, um, work for 7 hours or 8 hours, take the bus or the train home. Takes a little longer than it does by car. Or maybe it even takes less time. But the fact that it doesn't have to be your own vehicle that you're wearing out, and the fact that multiple people, like sometimes 10 or 20 or 30 people at a time, are moving between those two places, it makes it way more efficient. It's a way more intelligent way to move forward, right? In an era where we know we're burning the last bit of oil that is on this planet, when we know for a fact that we have reached as much oil as we're ever going to be able to find, the fact that we have reached peak oil and that our ability to find new is going to get worse every year after this means that we need to be finding ways to clear inefficiencies in every way that we can. And one of the biggest inefficiencies in America is the fact that something like 90% of the population here has to have a car to get around. And that's just retarded. There should be public transportation in every city in this fucking country. There should be public transportation in every state in this country. And it should be widely and easily accessible. FedNow Act was designed to do this to the housing market. That sucks. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac buy up houses, aka government owns majority of real estate. Pretty much makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, the government in any given society owns all the land, fundamentally, right? Um, we like to act like we've come so very far from feudalism, but what is property tax if not, you know, what is property tax if not a tax levied on your fief, right? They didn't end feudalism; they just made us all little petty lords and consolidated the king. Or no, let me put it a better way. They They democratized feudalism, which means now we're all little petty lords. And instead of one king, there's a massive collection of petty kings and interconnected barons that maintain everything from their position in the distant city on the hill, while all of us quarrel amongst ourselves. But we all make sure to pay that once yearly fee for being allowed to own some of the king's land, right? That fundamental idea really never went away. If you can't tell, I'm against property tax. I'm for pretty much every other kind of tax, but I am okay. I'm not completely against property tax, but I think that there should be an exemption for private landowners or family landowners under like 100 acres or something. Like, okay, if you've got more than 100 acres, okay, we can start taxing you. But under that, I think there should be a threshold at which you don't have to pay just for the privilege to exist. I don't think there should be citizenship fees, and property tax to me feels like a citizenship fee. I think if somebody wants to buy some land and then stay on that land and never use a fucking public service and never get a traditional job and never rely on Social Security, like if somebody wants to do that, I don't like. Why shouldn't they be allowed to do that? I've never understood why someone should not be allowed to do that. I think society would be far more equitable if there was some path for people to do that. But right now there isn't because you can get yourself looped out of every single other expense and obligation, you know, but you will not get out of property tax. You will have to find a way to pay for that. And, like a lot of people probably want to be moneyless and can't because of that fundamental reason right there. Yes, as those investment companies are getting out of hand and they're driving up the housing market. A new house in our area costs over 250,000 for a two-bedroom cookie cutter home. Rent is over 1,500 bucks. Yeah, I mean the fact that the capitalist oligarchs that run this country have been allowed to completely monopolize housing under their control means that you're just going to see that situation get worse until the bubble collapses, until there are no more people making enough money to justify that. And what's probably going to happen before a collapse in that case is that they're going to start giving out, just be on the lookout for this, because once you start seeing this, you can be sure the housing market's about to collapse. Be on the lookout for people starting to get approved for houses they should have no business having. Be on the lookout for people getting approved for contracts and mortgages that they cannot afford. Because once that starts happening, then you know shit's really fucking getting fucked. Because the market, a house on the market abhors a vacuum in terms of a seller. Like, something on the market exists to be bought, and the longer it stays unbought, the less potential value it has, so to speak. So they've got a huge incentive to move these, and the longer they stay on the market, the longer there's an incentive to move them, because the longer they stay on the market, the more it seems like there's some reason why it's not selling. It's just not a good look, and so eventually the bubble has to pop. And the way it happened last time was uh, houses started getting houses housing prices kept going up, and the amounts of mortgages that people would approve kept going up as well. People were also signing on to really stupid mortgages because they just didn't have a whole lot of financial education. So you're starting to see a very similar situation pan out here. Housing prices way the fuck up. Rent way the fuck up. People wanting to buy houses way the fuck up because of those, because people um, see how expensive rent is getting, and they probably think, well, if housing is going up this far, it's probably going to keep going up. So people really want to get in on those houses, right? And literacy rates are at an, I mean, I should say illiteracy rates are at an all-time high right now. Literacy rates are at an all-time low, which means people are less equipped than ever to really understand what they're signing on to for these mortgages. And once that shit starts coming due, and people figure out that their adjustable rate mortgage just went up, and suddenly they can't afford it, they can't even afford it no matter what they do, all these chickens are going to come home to roost, and this fucking bubble is going to collapse. And then houses will be affordable again, my friend. Just hold on strong till then, because this bubble has to pop at some point. Because it will get to a point where working class people literally cannot buy a house anymore unless they are given a mortgage that they fundamentally can't afford, or a mortgage that is absurd in its obligation. So it probably isn't our business, but should we be concerned for Abby Dangers? She seems to be in bad sorts. No, I think Abby's fine in terms of like Abby's a strong woman. She's like, she strikes me as the kind of person who is not going to be daunted by this long term. I think you should feel empathy for her. I think you should feel like bad for her in terms of like it sucks to go through what she's going through right now. But the only thing about Abby is that she is going to be just fine. She will live through this. Think about this. 1 month in a nursing home is $9,000. Rent is then cheap by comparison. Well, that's the fucking thing, is that because like that's a whole nother fucking ball of wax though, right? Is like because um nursing homes are not only preying, they're preying on two things, right? They're preying on the fact that old people by and large get Medicare, and by and large have insurance. They're preying on that because they see it as easy money, and they see human beings as numbers on a chalkboard, just like landlords do. And they're also preying on the generosity and the willingness of families to do anything to make sure that their loved ones are taken well care of, which is an admirable trait and an admirable thing for people to want to do. But it is incredibly ignoble for these nursing homes to charge people $9, $10, $12,000 a month just for the privilege of living in what equates to a pretty nice hotel. Like, there are legitimately hotels you could stay at for way the fuck cheaper than the average nursing home. Being poor is underrated. The bourgeoisie will never understand the Epicurean titillation of eating squirrel meat. Oh my god. Way to romanticize poverty, dude. That is an absurd level of romanticization. As someone who has eaten squirrel meat, there is no Epicurean titillation to it. It's just a pretty chewy meal. Um, but a certain group are taking a toll on our education and welfare system. They put in less than they take out. How do we deal with that? A certain group? Who are we talking about there? That feels like a little bit of a dog whistle, my friend. Um, I tend to think that this idea that there is an entire group of people in America that are massively taking advantage of welfare but not putting much into it, um, I tend to think that that is an overblown phenomenon. I think that people will see like a welfare queen once or twice in their life and then assume that that's every other person on welfare. And I think that that's an incredibly unfair assumption to make. And it's also worth noting that racism gets, involved in a lot of these conversations as well, because a lot of people will associate certain racial groups in America with um, higher than normal rates of welfare participation. And lower than normal employment rates. When the fact of it is that the both of the groups that they're talking about tend to honestly be employed more reliably than white people. So I don't think that it's something you can quantify on the basis of demographic. I think that there are just some people who, okay, like just like there are bourgeoisie scammers, right? Just like there are people who have figured out how to get me and you to work our asses off for them to have a yacht. There are people who have figured out how to get me and you to work our asses off for them to have a shitty little single wide trailer. And honestly, I don't know about you, but I would much rather pay for some layabout to have some shitty basic human upkeep apartment or single wide trailer in some trailer home, or I'm sorry, some trailer park. I would much rather pay for that through my blood, sweat, and tears than I would Elon Musk's 14th yacht or Jeff Bezos's, giant mega yacht that they had to dismantle an ancient fucking Danish bridge for. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to be supporting a leech no matter what. There have always been human beings who have figured out a way to, by hook or by crook, get out of their obligations to the broader society. Which one do you want to deal with? Because one of them, in my opinion, like that, like, you don't have to have the billionaire, right? You don't have to have the welfare queen, quote unquote, either. But there is clearly some impulse in humanity, in at least some people, to not do all that much. And I don't think it's a very common impulse because the vast majority of people I've ever known who were on food stamps or welfare of some kind maintained pretty busy lives, even if they didn't work a traditional job. Most of them had some kind of hobby or some kind of thing that they were into. And I tend to think that if you freed people from the chains of capitalism, you would see a lot of people do more with their lives than they do right now. So I think that you would actually see some of this parasitism start to reverse itself. And I also want to say that I think a lot of this parasitism is kind of overblown as a narrative, because the fact of it is that the vast majority of people in this country do work and pay into the tax system that we all share benefit from. And the ones who don't have to put up with a pretty fucking pathetic existence to live that way. If you've ever been inside the trailer of somebody who's lived off of welfare for the last 10 years or lived off of SSI or something, you would know that it's not exactly a fucking grand living. They milk everything they can get. Yeah, but what they can get is, in every fucking case that I've ever fucking known, a shitty little apartment in some bad neighborhood or a trailer in a trailer park. That, like, people talk about the people that we're talking about with such flowery language when it comes to the exploitation that they think that they're getting up to. But they never use that same flowery language to describe billionaires, right? Billionaires are the ones who milk us for everything they can get. Billionaires are the ones who've got their hands on your fucking titties. It's not the fat lady down the road who's been living on welfare for the last 10 years and eating donuts on your dime. That, like she is not the reason why the roads in your city haven't gotten fixed in fucking 30 years. She is not the reason why billions of dollars are being spent on munitions and war participation by America right now. She is not the reason why your job pays just about the same as it did 20 years ago, but sells its product for 3 times more. She is not that. It's the fucking employing class. They're the ones who've got their hands on those dials, They're the ones who milk as much as they can possibly get. Do you know wage theft is the primary form of fraud in America? Did you know wage theft is the primary form of monetary theft in this country? It's by far the most common. People just, your boss just shorten you your boss shorten you a couple of hours on your check because you were late a couple of times, or shorten you some time on your check because they accuse you of stealing something you didn't even fucking look at. Jobs just conveniently figuring out ways to ask more of people without ever paying them for it. Dude, Missouri just had to pay out a huge settlement for this exact reason. Wage theft. Go look it up. Wage theft. Go look up Missouri Department of Corrections wage theft. It's one of the biggest issues in the country. Not welfare theft, right? Not welfare fraud, wage theft. That is the primary form of fraud in this society. Think about that. We're getting milked from both sides, but we're not really getting milked by the fucking welfare people. That's what I'm telling you. The welfare people, by and large, are just other working class people. Do you realize that Walmart employees are one of the biggest groups of welfare recipients in this country? Walmart employees, gainfully employed motherfuckers, are some of the biggest. So you know what that means, right? That doesn't mean they're lazy and just don't want to work enough. That means they're fucking working and their job still isn't paying them enough to pay for food for their family and to keep them afloat in a modern society. So you're not getting milked by those people. Just because you know a couple of fat ladies who've been living on fucking SSI for 10 years and eat a bunch of Twinkies and fucking fountain sodas does not mean that that is representative of every person who's ever been on welfare or ever been on food stamps. Okay? Jeff Bezos was friends with Weird Al Yankovic when they were kids. Dude, that's weird. Is that true? I could floor you all with my life story. Well, please don't. Because I'm about to get off here. Oh, man. Everybody thinks they've got the fucking wildest life story. Oh, but I beat you all with one simple 3-letter phrase. CSA. Gotcha. Anybody else raped as a kid? No? Didn't think so. They take everything from you when you're old. You've gotten to the end of your lifespan in a capitalist society. What is there left to take but everything you've built up over your life? That's the last final gasp. It's the final squeeze, right? Being in a nursing home, watching your savings get depleted by it, watching your house get sold, all this other shit. And the capitalists do their final squeeze. It sucks, really does. I'm sorry you went through that. I mean, I joke about it these days because it's, I guess it's kind of a it's kind of like a coping mechanism. It's kind of how I learned to not let it dominate my mindset. And so now I just kind of look at it as an example of, like, well, a lot of things. An example of how you can't necessarily trust someone just because they're family. An example about how the things that we tend to think of as being far removed and foreign are very often happening under our very noses. Mario or Luigi? Well, bye.